Hello, Anne, and
Hello.
congratulations on your honorary doctorate from the University of Warwick. Thanks for
Thank you.
joining us today. You've received nearly 50 years of awards in recognition of your services and achievements in the field of children's entertainment,
Oh
be
dear,
it
is that true?
books or television programs.
Right.
I think it is.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, what are your proudest achievements or moments within that? Because you've created so many wonderful programs for people all around the
Yeah.
world.
Well, people often say, what's your favourite programme? And I mean, it's like asking a mother what's her favourite child. You would never say. So I never say. But the greatest thing for me is that my son is now working with us and is running Ragdoll, the company. So it means I can still have all the fun and do all the creative stuff at my advanced age and still enjoy myself. So I think it's an achievement to have actually allowed somebody to grow up in the atmosphere of our home when we were running a business at great risk to ourselves, who still stayed interested and still is enthusiastic about it. I would say that's my proudest thing.
You mentioned some fun and creativity that you still get to do now. Um, what have been? Is there a specific element or of creating the programs that is the most fun element to you, or um, has there been a particular program that's been especially fun in terms of the people or the characters that mean something to you?
Well, they all have their different moments, good and bad actually. But the great thing is when you first of all when we show the cuts before they actually go to the BBC or whichever broadcaster you're working with to children and you see them smile, then you know, yes, it's working. We've got quite a few tapes of children responding, laughing, and that's absolutely wonderful. I love that part. But the other part that's interesting, I mean, it's Anish Kapoor who said, the great contemporary artist, that the best moment in creating anything is at the beginning when anything is possible. And so you can dream and anything is possible. And then, of course, you have to throw out stuff and you have to come down to reality because you've only got X money and you can't do everything. And so the challenge then is to learn to love the constraints of what you're working with. And that's interesting as well. So I love it all, really. But I think the best moment is seeing the first responses from children. The best I ever had was the first response to a little program we did called Dip Dap, which is very short and which still goes out on the BBC from time to time. And it's just a little cartoon without words, and the children just thought it was the funniest thing, to my great joy. And everyone looked at it who'd been working on it, and the whole morale in the whole company just lifted. So that's the greatest thing, really.
And do you have a specific creative process for coming up with ideas or concepts, such as Dip Tap, for instance?
Well, you know, when you are an independent producer, you have to look at the market that you're in. And unfortunately, now we cannot make just for the UK. So you have to consider, is there an idea that will be globally appealing and that will translate into many different cultures? I mean, the great thing about Teletubbies, and why we're still here, is the success of Teletubbies was amazing. I mean, it went to 156 countries or something astonishing. Um, and we had made a program that we thought would be a conversation with very young children because we knew that young children were watching television that wasn't necessarily made for them. And so the challenge was to hold up a mirror, if you like, to be Shakespearean about it, to hold up a program that children would recognize themselves in. And what we found was young children everywhere in the world recognized themselves. So it was a wonderful thing because they knew the same things. They understood the same things. It didn't matter what color, creed, or whatever else they were. So that was a lesson learned. And since then, we've had to concentrate really on finding ideas that have at their hearts characters that will touch a nerve in international audiences. So we have to think of that. But equally, um, you are looking for that point of emotional engagement that children have with a character. It's just the same as a writer will do, whether you're Michael Morpurgo or Julia Donaldson. You are looking, you know what the Gruffalo will do. You know what Iggle Piggle will do in The Night Garden, if you're me, or you know what the Teletubbies are about. And I'm working on a new one at the moment which has a very strong girl character at the centre, because my younger granddaughter is very into playing with dolls in a very interesting way. And so some of the inspiration, not all, comes from observing children, not just your own, but any children. You get ideas from all over the place. And then it takes you about 2 years for this idea to gestate and take shape and find an echo amongst your colleagues, because somebody has to drive the vision. And so far at Ragdoll, that's been me, because we pay the bills, and you're risking your whole company on whether this idea is going to work or not. So, and also, it is a really interesting thing to collaborate, which we do all the time. Ours is a business that's made by many people, not just one. And so collaboration is very important. But if you want to successfully collaborate, somebody has to take responsibility at the end of the day. So everybody can freely associate as long as somebody in the food chain is going, this is what we're going to do, and I will be responsible. So that's me. And that's still me, although Christopher is doing a tremendous amount to stop me getting too wild and too dreamy in my old age, and says to me, he brings the power of reality. Reality is we've only got X money. So it's not always, smooth sailing, but it's fun and it's challenging.
I'm pleased you mentioned Ragdoll. I was wondering what inspired you, or what spurred you to set up your company Ragdoll, that's responsible for so many wonderful television productions.
Well, the reason it started, I'm a reluctant businesswoman really, because I had been at TVAM and very successful as head of children's programmes for them. And then the management changed and they didn't want a children's department anymore, so I found myself without a job. And at the time, Channel 4 had just established itself. The only way forward was to set up a company. I tried everything else and nothing else worked, so I had to do it. And I thought, what shall I call it? And a lot of people were calling the companies after themselves. The various people had companies called, so-and-so's Productions or whatever. But I had had the experience of my daughter, who had a much-loved Ragdoll, who'd become almost a member of our family. And I thought, if I'm going to make work for younger children, which I had decided to do, partly because I had had a very successful early morning programme at TVAM called Rubber Dub Tub, and had a lot of fans for that. And I thought, well, there's an audience there. I'll make for that audience. And Ragdoll symbolises the fact that you appeal to audiences of that age through character. And so that's really how it became. But we still have the doll, who is now, about 40 years old.
Fantastic. Oh. And I was also wondering, what do you think the benefits are for graduates from the University of Warwick for studying film and television at university?
I think anyone who studies film and television has to be very brave in the current climate, but especially very dedicated. You really, 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 really have to want to do it. And if you really, really, really want to do it, you will find a way. And you have to put yourself about, shamelessly, getting jobs as runners in companies that are out shooting, not minding what you do, get experience outside the university. That's hard. Because you may find that you've learned a lot about the industry in general and about what makes good films, and quite right too, so you should. But to get into the industry, you really have to start and do the nitty-gritty, from being a runner throughout and attaching yourself like glue to any company you think you can get a foot in the door of. And then, through that experience, you discover what part of the industry you want to be in. I mean, you simply cannot go straight from university to being a producer, for example. And to be a producer, you have to know what all the processes are. So it's a long, hard apprenticeship, but it's worth it if you really want to do it.
It's fantastic advice for our students, and thanks so much for being with us today, Anne, and congratulations again on your honorary doctorate from the
Thank
University
you.
of
Thank
Warwick.
you very much.